Well, thank you for joining the National Real Estate Cafe with Don Gelly and Gino Fronti live in San Ramon at the Social Survey Wow event. And this has been an absolute wow event, especially with our next speaker coming up here.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It's so much fun because last night we're at dinner and we met our speaker that was a speaker today.
Yeah, just an MC.
She was like, oh, I was asked to MC a little bit tomorrow, maybe, you know, we were like, oh, that's cute.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
nice.
yeah,
That's
okay.
good.
Yeah,
And then
she
today
actually
goes up and slays
knocks it out of the park. And we're taking notes. We're like, whoa, and we're like, she's going to speak at our event. She's amazing.
Yeah.
The cool thing is our goal is always to add value, guide you to personal financial wellness, and of course, create super fans. And nobody knows how to do that better than our guest today.
Well, thank you.
Brittany Hodak. Very cool speaking event today. You absolutely crushed it.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun. Today was a lot of fun. This was a
And
great
you're
audience.
funny too.
Thank you.
Yeah, and unlike my co-host.
Yeah, well, it was just refreshing, you know, because it's nice when you hear a speaker remind you of the things that you know you should do, the things that you want to do, the things that you get distracted from doing, and the cost of that. And you really put that, just with one of your examples that you gave about an airline, it was the pain that a company can experience because they forget the people they know, like, and care about.
Or also the items that other companies can do don't really cost you anything.
Right.
They're the next step over.
That was huge.
So I'd love you to kind of share with our audience some of the stuff you shared with us today about creating super fans and how your personal experiences and now how you're sharing that with others, how to create super fans.
Sure. Well, you know, I always say the secret to creating super fans is connecting your story to your customer's story. And there's two really important components about that. It sounds simple, right? Like, oh, you're going to just connect your story to their story. But before you can connect the stories, you've got to collect the stories, right? So that starts with understanding your own story. If you're not able to clearly articulate what makes you and your business the best in the world and the best at serving customers, you're not going to be able to explain it to your customers,
Well, we were
right?
talking about that this
Especially
week,
when you work
actually.
in a commodity market, how
Right.
are you going to differentiate yourself when you've got competitors everywhere? Because you don't want the answer to be on price. You never want price to be the deciding factor because guess what? Next time you might not have the lowest price.
Right.
So you've got to win on service. If you don't win on service, you're in trouble long term. So,
But I would imagine you even have to go a level higher. We believe our service levels are highest and the best in our area. But when you have price and say another company says they have service, I think you have to go a step above that though.
yeah, you know, it's not just service, it's story, right? Because now customer service is the cost of entry. I read a really cool quote the other day, and I can't remember who said it, but they said these days customers aren't just comparing you to the best experience they've had in your industry, they're comparing you to the best customer service experience they've ever had anywhere. We expect things to be personalized, we expect them to be automated when possible, we expect them to be tailored to us, we expect people to know about our histories and our backgrounds, and you know, in this world where things are becoming increasingly automated, the way that you have to win is by being the most human, right? And not just being the most human, like being the best human, like being the best at making people feel great. Because purchasing anything is an emotional experience, right? And I think
People
we'd all
forget
like
that.
to think we're more logical than we actually are. People tend to think they are much more logical and much less emotional than they are, in fact, when it comes to making decisions.
Well, and sometimes I make those decisions by hitting enter on Amazon, and it's very gratifying to hit enter over and over and
Right?
over again and get stuff. Believe it, I mean, it's like getting a gift every day. I go outside, there's a box. It's like, yay.
It's
you
like
know,
Christmas
exciting.
every day.
It's so easy.
But
yeah.
it is, it's exciting.
And it's because they've
there's
built
an
that
element of
experience for you. And, you know, I think figuring out the experience, figuring out what it is that you can do to not just deliver, but over-deliver to your customers is really how you begin to build fans. And, you know, one thing that I think a lot of people aren't taking the time to do, to a detriment to their business, is they aren't taking time to really listen to their customers, right? People aren't treating each customer as an individual. And that's so important, and especially in the mortgage space.
Transactional instead of,
Right, it becomes transactional, and people feel like another number. They feel like they're part of your quota, and that's never how you want to make anybody feel. You want to make them feel like you are their person. You are so excited to be helping them make their dream come true. You want to be their dream maker, not the person who's like got them in a spreadsheet somewhere and is hoping to hit your quota for them.
So it has to be real.
It's got to be real. It's so funny. A few weeks ago, I was doing a corporate training, and it was like a full day training, and at lunchtime, so we're like 4 hours into the training, this guy comes up to me and he says, "I'm really enjoying this, and I feel like it's finally connecting. I've got to learn how to make people think I care about them." And it was like one of those like baseball moments, and I was like,
I don't think you're getting the message.
I was like, well, actually, and the way I put it to him, I said, how would you feel if one of your friends said to you, "I've got to make my fiance think that I care about her"? Like, would you feel good about the long-term trajectory of that relationship, or would you be like, this might not end well?
Yeah.
And he was like, well, obviously. And I was like, maybe you should look at a little less customer service-centric role, because if your biggest takeaway is how do I make people think I care about them when I don't,
you're in the wrong field.
Not sure if this is the right business for you long
And
term.
people do sense, whether you're real or not. They really do. You can't. Smoke and mirrors don't work.
Even when we do the show.
Smoke and mirrors will work to a certain extent sometimes, but that's you can only fake it so long, right? Like you can only get by so long, and even if the people can't sense it, maybe they have a pet, and maybe that dog can tell that you're a jerk who doesn't like them. Right?
Even when we do the show, we always do it live. It's impromptu. We don't really script anything, and mistakes happen. We had a sign fall. Things happen, and I think that makes it real. It makes it authentic, and you just have to be yourself for people to trust you.
You absolutely have to be yourself, and authenticity is so important. And customers don't expect you to be perfect. They expect you to fix it when stuff goes wrong. They want the validation. They want you to say, "I messed up and I'm sorry," and they want the fix. And when you can do that, 9 times out of 10, you're going to walk away with somebody who perhaps is an even more engaged customer than they would have been if it had just gone right from day one, right? Like if everything had gone right, they would have said, okay, this is a great experience. But when you have something that's going wrong and you're able to step in and fix it, you end up looking, A, like someone who really cares about your customer, B, like someone who's smart enough to fix something that went wrong, and C, like a really nice person who cares about the success of your customers. So, customers don't expect you to be perfect, they just expect you to care about them.
Well, you know my saying at our office, when stuff goes wrong, and it's a very dynamic industry, the mortgage industry, because stuff will go wrong on a pretty regular basis.
That is the rule.
Yeah. It is. And
every day.
So the team gets sometimes a little bit overly excited. I go, actually, treat it the other way around. This is the good stuff. This is why they need you. This is why they're going to continue to come back to you, because you figured out. Stay calm, fix it, and that's the good stuff, and it'll make you feel good because you fixed it for them. If it's just a regular, everyday transaction, you'll get bored yourself. They'll get bored with you. There's no reason for you versus somebody else. It's the tough stuff that's the good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is we're talking a little bit about consumers, but I'm thinking, I walked away from there reminding myself what we need to do with our employees.
Right.
Yep.
And former employees and people that we've crossed paths with in the past that I wanted to rekindle kind of. And I'm thinking to myself, those are super fans. The people that we worked with for a really long time are super fans of ours. And
I hit up 6 during your speech, by the way. Like, oh, just you're appreciated. Hey,
which is
like,
amazing,
thanks.
and to do that, and I'm sure all of those people now they're like, wow, I got this really nice note from Don out of the blue, letting me know that he cares about me.
Yeah. No, like it's a little
At
early
like
to be
9:30 in the
drinking.
morning.
Exactly.
a little soppy for the middle of the day, Don.
No, but that's fantastic, and people love to hear that. And to make another relationship analogy, would you rather be in a relationship with somebody who doesn't tell you how much they love and care about you because they think you know, or would you rather be in a relationship with somebody who reminds you and shows you how much they love you and care about you? I know I'm in the latter camp, and perhaps some people are in the former camp, but I want to know, and I don't care if it's a brand or a service provider or an actual person. Like, I want to know that I matter to them because they matter to me.
You actually touched on something, right? Brands matter to you.
They do.
Because now you're super sensitive to it because it's what you do. And we realize now it's become your persona. Just in 5 minutes of meeting, you're like, oh my God, I can't be holding this. It's not my thing.
Well,
right?
you know, it's so fascinating to me, and I'm working on a book right now that's all about fandom and identity. And what I am so fascinated about is how we self-select brands and experiences that become part of our identity, right? We opt into them and we say, this is now part of my story. And it shapes not only our worldview, but also the way we project outwardly that people are looking upon us. So it really is fascinating how brands have the ability to shape the landscape. And, you know, I think the really powerful thing for entrepreneurs is to understand it's not just big brands, right? It's not just, we were talking about Dr. Pepper, we were talking about some other big brands, but
I was waiting for you to be like, and I was just taking a sip.
Yeah.
Well, you remember, I mean, like Zach and Sherry, where they had Rockstar everywhere.
No,
I mean,
yeah.
that's all they would drink. I mean, so
Well,
we
there's also
associated,
it
and they
became
became
their
their
persona.
brand.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Real estate rock stars.
it becomes what you're known for. It becomes part of your story, right? And so I was saying before, the real secret to creating superfans is connecting your story to their story. And part one of that is getting super clear on your story. What makes you unique? What makes you unlike anybody else in the world and uniquely positioned to deliver the very best experience for your customers? Part two of that is understanding your customer story. And every customer has their own story, right? We all come to any experience with different backgrounds, different beliefs, different things that are important to us, different fears, and we're looking for someone to validate that and to help us get to where we want to go. I do a lot of speaking, and my background is all in the entertainment industry. So, you know, I've worked with celebrities and sports teams and superstars, and occasionally I'll have people say, how is what you're going to talk to me about gonna ever relate to what I do? Like, I don't have millions of followers on Instagram. Like, I'm not selling out stadiums. What can you say to me that's gonna help me in my day-to-day life? And I said, well, let me tell you a story about somebody I'm a super fan of. I'm a super fan of my exterminator, Scott. And you might not think that an exterminator would have a super fan, but I am damn sure a Scott super fan, and the reason I am is, so I am like deathly afraid of brown recluse spiders, right? Do you guys know about brown recluse spiders?
Of course I do.
We're Black
They're-
Widow people in California, but yeah, same.
I mean, I think that brown recluse spiders are the like creepiest, most
I'm right there
nightmarish
with you.
thing in the world.
Yeah.
Because unlike a black widow, when you get bit by a brown recluse spider, not only does your skin oftentimes start to
fall.
decay,
Yeah.
but the like venom or whatever it is that the spider puts into your body stays in your body forever, and you will continue to attract more brown recluse spiders to bite you forever. Like, there's nothing you can do. Like, literally the only thing you can do is
creepy
die.
crawling now.
Right?
Yeah, seriously.
So
So where's
disgusting.
Scott the
It sounds like
exterminator right
like
now?
a Stephen King horror story.
It is.
So, and I'm deathly afraid of brown recluse spiders because I grew up in a house that had them, and we
Oh,
couldn't
no.
get rid of them. It was like in the woods in Oklahoma,
Oh, that's
and
like
so
a
as a
more bad
child, I
horror
was like,
movie.
Yeah.
oh yeah, like there were a couple times my parents thought they were gonna have to take me to the emergency room just because I was like
know what
so
your second
freaked
book's
out
gonna be about.
because there were spiders on me. So to me, this is like a very real fear, right? So part of the reason I wanted to move to New York after I graduated college was because they didn't have brown recluse spiders.
Did you do
because
studies before that?
Oh, I looked at the map. I was like, what state can I live in and not have brown recluse spiders? And that's one of the reasons that delayed my move back to Tennessee. So I was in New York for 11 years. I moved back to Tennessee. Now I live just south of Nashville. And I was so afraid because I know that there's brown recluse spiders in Tennessee because the ground doesn't freeze deeply enough in the winter. So the exterminator who came, you know how they make you, like when you buy a house, you have an exterminator who tests for like termites and stuff. So I said to the guy, I need like a regular spider guy. I need to make sure that there is never a brown recluse anywhere in my house. And he was so dismissive. He was like, listen, there's not gonna be brown recluse. Like, you live in a subdivision, you're fine. Basically made me feel like I was a crazy person. And I knew I wasn't a crazy person because there had been a news story about 2 weeks earlier of a woman who lived in an apartment complex that was like 15 miles away from where I moved, that there were thousands of brown recluse spiders. Like, she got bit like 30 times, and it was just horrible, like the scariest story you can imagine. And it was like 15 miles from where I lived. So I was like, I know they have legs. I know they can travel. I'm not like, except like 15 miles is too close.
Doesn't sound that far, yeah.
Anyway, I was like, beat it, exterminator. You're not the bug guy I want. So I called around, got another exterminator, came to my house. Scott, love Scott. He's so awesome. he
That was my first
not
one, not the bug
only
guy.
validated the fact that this was a legitimate concern to have, but he talked me through everything he was going to do to make sure there weren't brown recluse spiders in my house. And so now he comes back every 12 weeks.
Oh, he doesn't have a room in your house?
You know what's funny? So now,
Come by every morning.
every time something happens,
You
I'll
want coffee,
text him. He's like he's so sweet. My son, like a couple weeks ago, my son had a tick on him, and I freaked out.
yeah.
Right, my baby, first time my baby's had a tick.
Cute as hell, by the way.
Thank you. The baby, not the tick.
Yeah, the baby. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It might have been a good-looking tick.
And maybe,
Thank you.
And maybe not all the Michigan garb either.
Well, I was so freaked out, and my husband was traveling, and it was like 8 o'clock at night, and I was like, I know, if I call the pediatrician, it's just going to be the nurse line. So I'm taking pictures, texting it to my exterminator, Scott, and I'm like, hey, I'm sorry to bug you, but like, how concerned do I need to be about the tick on my baby? So that's how close I am with Scott. He's like, yeah, I have this crazy lady who texts me random things. I'll send pictures of bugs to be like, should I be worried about this? But I am absolutely a super fan of Scott. I've recommended him to all of my friends who've moved to the area because he validated my concerns. He told me exactly what he was going to do to take care of the problem. And I've never seen, have I not seen a brown recluse spider, but I very, very, very rarely see any kind of spiders anywhere around like my garage or my yard, which is awesome. So do you think that I'm ever going to have another exterminator?
No, I just saw
way.
how passionately you described him and the service he provides for just a few minutes.
You know what? Listen
that's
to that.
being
That's
a super fan right there. I mean, that's the testimonial.
Imagine creating those. I mean,
No.
like you said.
And why did he do that? It's because he connected with my story. He did not dismiss my fears. He said, I absolutely understand why you're freaked out by spiders. Let me tell you exactly what we're going to do to take care of it. And not only that, so in the 3 years since we moved, we adopted 2 dogs. We had a son. So Scott is so sweet. Every time I see him, I'm like, everything you're spraying is safe, right? Like, it's okay for the dogs, it's okay for the baby, and I know that it is because he's told me, every time he's been in my house, and he's been in my house like 20 times now. But he always reassures me, and he never makes me feel like I'm crazy for asking again. And that's the kind of service provider that you want. So I don't care what industry you're in. I would imagine a lot of people who are watching are in the real estate and mortgage industries, but it doesn't matter what business you're in. If you are treating people well and you are helping them go from where they're at to where they need to be, they are going to love you. They are going to not only tell their friends about you, but they are going to tell strangers about you. Like I'm telling all you guys, we've been talking about Scott for however long now.
We're going to send this to Scott so he can put it on his website.
Bellmead Exterminating, Franklin, Tennessee. No, but that's just one example of how you've got to figure out what it is that you're doing. So the service that Scott provides me, some people might say it's extermination, right? Like he's getting rid of bugs. No, what Scott is giving me is a sense of safety in my own home.
Right.
Scott is the reason I feel safe in my home.
Yeah.
So when you figure out what that base need is that you're satisfying, when you figure out what it is that you can do to improve the lives of your customers in a way that nobody else can do, right? That they can't do themselves, that's when you win. That's when you create super fans, and that's when you get people who say, I'm going to go to bat for this person, and like, this is my guy. I don't care if they go work at another company. I don't care if they change industries. Like, if Scott decided he wanted to stop killing bugs next week, first of all, I would not let him do that until he gave me like a new Scott to make sure I don't have brown recluse spiders. But if he was like, hey, I have a career change and now I'm going to go sell kayaks, I'd be like, awesome, Scott, I want to buy a kayak from you. Can I still, text you
brown
pictures
recluse spiders in the kayak?
But see, so all that comes back to trust, right? He created safety for you. It creates a trust, and when you have that trust, it's the transfer of trust. When you get, like we were talking earlier, with reputation, with reputation management, with online management, with all these different things. It's like, how do you not just build that trust? Because I feel like salespeople build trust quickly. That's why they're salespeople. How do they keep that trust for a long time? And you have to go back to what we first started talking about, saying you got to be authentic. If you're not authentic, you can't. I promise you, Scott actually cares. And he doesn't think you're crazy. And he actually, and he actually was like, yeah.
And now we're going to bring out Scott, ladies and gentlemen. This
But I think he just probably genuinely cared, and you could feel that, and so then that's why you became a super fan.
Yeah, well, and I know, like I said, the first person that I had the experience with didn't care, and that's what makes all the difference. And you never know, what's that saying? Like, you never know who needs a smile on any given day. Like, the smallest thing can make the biggest difference. And I think it's such a cool thing that as people, we all have this power to impact the lives of everybody around us, right? You never know who the person that is put into your life at that exact right moment for you to make an impact on them. And it could be somebody at the grocery store.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect statement. When we were having dinner with you, we met a new great lady. We did not know how much impact you would have on our lives, because you did have a great impact with your speech. A lot of people we've talked to is like, holy cow, she impacted me. We're motivated to go. What's nice is your message is a great message, because now we're more motivated to help more of you out there and do a better job at making more of our customers super fans. So
that's awesome. Well, thank you for saying that. And you know, something I didn't talk about on stage, although I'm a dork, so usually when I give keynotes, I'll make like homework for people. I'll say, here's worksheets if you want to
I would have run
actually
away.
implement this.
I'm not good at the school homework.
It's not, you know, it's optional. It's for those kids like me who would ask for homework to do over the summer when they were students in school. But one of the things that I mentioned in the takeaway from the keynote today that I didn't talk about on stage is something I like to call my high five. So for the past several years, at the beginning of the year, I've picked 5 people, and I've said, these are the 5 people I'm going to super duper extra overserve this year. I'm going to love on them every chance I get. I'm going to make sure I'm top of mind. I'm going to be checking in with them. They don't know they're on my list, but these are the people I'm going to make sure that I'm top of mind to them, because they're top of mind for me, and I'm being very regular about my follow-up. And you know, every year that I've done this, I've seen exponential returns, you know, professionally and personally, and that's something that I would highly recommend anyone do. So anybody watching this right now who's like, I don't have time to take care of everybody, I don't have time to over-deliver, cool, pick 5 people. Pick 5 people who right now have the power to impact your business in a real way. They could be existing customers.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and another thing that you can do, like if you have a team of 5 or 6 people, all of a sudden, okay, now if each one of those 6 people picks 5 people, well, guess what? That's 30 people. So 30 people that you're going to regularly, you know, wow in some way, right? Like create a wow experience. And it doesn't have to be a big thing every time. You know, it can be, you know, that they love something, set some Google alerts so that when something happens, you can send a note to them. Or, you know, I can't tell you the number of times I've spent like hours trying to find a cool article online to send to somebody to be like, hey, like this just came across my news feed and I thought of you. It didn't come across my news feed. It took me a really long time to find it,
Right.
But I wanted an excuse to email you to get you, you know, to think of me.
And we are in stalker land now, right? So
Oh,
a lot of times,
absolutely.
you know, you're like, even if you don't know all about that person, you can find out more by just going online. Most people will put themselves out online and expose themselves and say, hey, I really like baseball, or I'm a big giant
Michigan fan.
But you can find that out pretty readily. You don't have to be a super sleuth these days. People are actually putting that information out there. You know, start with your Facebook friends.
Exactly.
You can get, but you know, if you pick 5, and you know, we have a group of 95 people that we're going to be with on Sunday, at least 80 of them. You know, that we can influence a lot of change if each one only talked about it.
And it doesn't, you know, do it once a month. And again, it doesn't have to be something that you're over delivering every time, but one of the ways that you can really show people that you care about them is by showing that you care about the people that they care about, right? So if you are Facebook friends with one of your customers and you see that their child has a birthday coming up, do something for that kiddo, right? Send a nice personalized gift for the kiddo. Or if you see that, you know, their spouse is celebrating a work anniversary, that's cool. That's awesome. You should acknowledge that.
Is it weird if I send Scott the Exterminator a bottle of wine?
As long as there's not like a creepy spider on the label, no. But you know, doing things that show, hey, I don't just care about you. I care about the people around you. Because when you do that, you start to become friends with people, right? And that's I really believe that the people with the most friends are going to win, right? Like whatever business you're in.
You can't lose with that, right?
Right.
That motto.
And if you think about our super fans, they're our friends. They're the people that we would invite to a birthday party. They're the people we'd go have a drink with. Those are our super fans. They're all people that we're like, we would consider them friends.
Yeah. Well, and you know, that's you said, you know, invite them over, get a drink with. I always say, everybody that you interact with in your business, treat them as if they are a guest in your home, because they kind of are. Right? Like you're kind of the host to whoever it is that you're working with, if you're a salesperson or a service person in any capacity.
Or a leader.
So,
I mean, we make sure
or a leader.
that,
Employee engagement
our
is so important.
employees are part of our family. Without a doubt. We can legitimately, we care about them.
I say it all the time. I spend more time with our employees than I do with my kids and my wife, so they're absolutely part of my family. I'll tell you, actually, it's a funny story. You weren't there, because you were out of town. But at my birthday party, I looked around, and for a moment I was like, how cool is it that all my friends are the people I work with, that I'm hanging out with right now at my house? And I'm like, that's really cool. That means you made it in life when your friends are the people you're with all the time.
Yeah.
It's cool.
And it's really cool. And a buddy of mine, really nice guy, great speaker, his name is John Ruhlin, and he wrote a book called Giftology, and it's all about strategic gifting and using gratitude to show people that you care. And he does something for his employees that I think is so awesome. And he has all of their houses cleaned on a regular basis because he says, you guys all work so hard for me that I want to show my appreciation to you by giving you back time to spend it with your family. So all of his employees' houses are cleaned on a regular basis. Think about what a cool perk that is for the employees, right? But also for him, you know, he's getting such an ROI on that goodwill, not only from the employees, but the employees' spouses. Like, how much do you think the spouses appreciate the fact that they've got a cleaning service, right?
Huge.
How much do you think their children appreciate it? So doing things like that. Another thing that I thought was really cool, that the same guy John did for his company, on Mother's Day, he had all of the moms and all of the spouses at his company, he got all their cars detailed.
Oh, nice.
And I was like, what a cool gesture. So just things like that, saying, you know, I'm not only going to acknowledge my employees when it's their, you know, 1-year anniversary or 5-year anniversary or whatever, but these are people who are important to me. I understand that they are critical to the success of my company and to my customers' journeys. So, you know, rewarding them in real time and letting them know how important they are to you.
There's also an element, though, of the random act of kindness, right? Because you kind of touch on that as well. It's not only on the important dates.
Right.
Random acts of kindness are so much more valuable.
Absolutely.
You know, so I think that's important too, is to do things by surprise and not to do things when they're planned. You know,
It's called sincerity.
Well, that's why I love half
Yeah.
birthday cards so much. Like, I usually will send a birthday card to people too, but like, you know, half
was
birthdays
cute.
are fun,
Half
you know? Like, it's funny. I wasn't planning on telling that story on stage today, and it like popped in my head, and I had a little bit longer than I thought I did in the keynote, and so I was like, oh, I'll tell the half birthday story. But you know,
was cute.
it's one of those things that, you know, that's one of the things that helps make me uncopyable, right? Like, if you guys, I mean, you can certainly,
now
you're
we're
free
gonna
to.
copy it.
I was going to say you can copy it and you're free to like adapt it, but then it's going to just be
That's
like
right.
you're sending out half birthday cards to people. You don't have the origin story of like, this is why half birthdays matter to me,
Right.
and this is why this is part of who I am. And that's why when I say figuring out what it is that are the points of your story. The other thing that you know, I always recommend salespeople do is, so like people always see me and they're like, wow, you're so social, like you're so friendly, you must love talking to people. I actually like get a lot of anxiety at events. Like, I'm not what I would call like a super social person. I'm, you know, always a person at the party, like,
Well, I felt like you were pretty quiet last night.
well, there you go.
Like I said,
So-
today all of a sudden it comes out of the show.
Well,
and I'm
that-
Well, no,
what
it's
the
like
heck?
it's like
Then he
meeting new
doesn't let
people,
anybody
and
else
when there's
talk.
like
Well,
10
there's
other
that.
people. But so when I first started my business, I would get like crazy anxiety about networking events because I was like, okay, I'm going to be one of the few females there. I'm probably going to be the only non-tech founder there. You know, like all of these things, and I'm like, I need things to talk about. I need things to do. So I would make lists of like, okay, here's 10 like icebreakers that I can use to talk to people, right? So that you're not in that awkward thing where you're like, okay, what are we going to talk about next? And what I found is that it was great because it was an exercise that would like force me, you know, out of my shell and like make me
More comfortable.
and also make me like, you know, more social. So like an introvert's trick to being like more of an extrovert. But I found like, oh, this is really cool because if I sort of know like, okay, I've got these 10 stories that I can tell or like 15 stories that I can tell, not all at the same time, but I just have them. But like, you know, I know like I could.
Story number 3.
Yeah, and you're like, but wait guys, there's more. Although I'm definitely kind of monopolizing this conversation here, so.
No,
but trust
it's
me,
your
like in real
show.
life,
It's
I
your
would.
show. We're just going to change the
The
name.
Brittany. Wait,
Hodak
look, give me
show.
just right there.
There you go.
Yes.
It'd make
Frosty
it
and
much
Frank, why
better.
not?
It'd make our poster much
Wait,
better looking.
do I get dollars to hold?
You can get the dollars.
Oh, this was very fun.
This is our original one, too.
That's a
The
very
original
old
one. It's
man.
9 years old.
Well,
Yeah.
you guys have aged fantastically well.
Oh,
You
yeah.
look, you look exactly
thank
the
you.
same
You know
as
what's
you
cool
do
about the
in
caricatures
posters.
is
Except all my hair moves from my head to my beard.
I can make him thinner and I can add hair. So that's what's great about caricatures.
Yeah, but see,
Well, I
all
love
my
the
hair moved to
caricature,
my
but-
face.
Yeah.
So, well, what I was like not doing a very good job, the point I was doing a terrible job of making was that if you can come up with like signature stories that you have as a salesperson that are going to help people remember you, you will stick in their mind, right? Like they will think of you after the fact. So even if you've closed on their loan, 3 months later, they might see something that sparks the memory of them. You know?
You're touching on something. You remember when it happened to us, because the radio show's kind of like that too. You're buying brain cells, but people aren't exactly sure. Maybe they heard about it, or it crossed something, and people are like, oh, I saw you on the billboard. We're like, we don't have a billboard, but okay. That you become a figment of their imagination somewhere.
They're obsessed with you, Gino. I believe what you're talking about are people who are...
Well, it does help because we talk about in our industry, it's very competitive. There's a lot of great professionals in our area, but they know us because of our radio show. They're like, Don and Gino, you know, the radio show guys, not just the lenders.
Or what
There's a lot
about
of
when we walked
lenders
into
out there and stuff,
walked into Goldstein's and
oh, that was funny.
Holstein's
Yeah.
in Vegas? Hey, the burger
guys. We do a little
And
burger
we do a burger
kinda-
show.
Yeah.
And you know, we're in Vegas, we walk into a restaurant, and
We've been there in 2
waitress
years.
is like, oh my God, it's you guys, here, I'll take you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's stuck in her mind.
So that's a good point.
Exactly, and it's, you know, as humans, we're hardwired to react to stories, right? It's evolutionary. Like, so if you can craft your story in a way that's going to stick in someone else's mind, you become more connected to their stories, right? They think of you more often, they think of you perhaps more fondly, and that's how you're gonna start to get referrals. That's how you take it from, you know, just a 5-star review of somebody said, hey, I think you're really great, to somebody who's going to think about you 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, 12 months later and say, oh yeah, like if you need a guy, I know a guy. Like you want them to all be on the I know a guy plan, right?
Yeah.
And
Right.
you want to be that guy.
Yeah.
What I love about having this interview with you today and watching you on stage today is that it's not just creating the super fan. You gave us great ideas of why it's important, how to do it, some ideas how to do it. I know there's more. And then, but also how to differentiate ourselves. Because even if you do these great things, you still got to stick in their head, and then you got to differentiate. You got to know your story, you got to know your brand, and why, and it makes you think differently than just, I do good service. Okay.
So do a lot of
Somebody-
people.
Or maybe
Right.
somebody doesn't tell their story all the time. You know, it's interesting you guys are talking about stories, because I went to lunch with Robert Clark last week, and we sat down and we kind of know each other, but we really don't. We're both in finance. He's like, so what's your story? And so I told him, he's like, it's a great story. And I'm like, I guess I should say that more often. I don't tell people this story. But it's definitely, I think we don't think about stories enough. We talk about it sometimes. We tell people, says, you know, storytelling's super important. And I never thought of it as being hardwired, but if you think about, you know, around a fire, and what do you do when you're camping out? You just hang around a fire and tell stories. That's what
Right?
you do.
And that's what people have done since the beginning of time. And there's a great book, it's coming out in a few weeks. It's called Story 10X. My buddy Michael wrote it.
Oh, cool.
I think October 8th is the street date.
Nice.
But it talks a lot about the history of stories. And he's incredible. He teaches storytelling to some of the biggest companies and most famous executives on
I'll
the
have to check
planet,
that out.
because he
Fantastic.
knows it's a tool to not only engage your employees, engage your customers, engage your customers' friends. Like, it's no joke. Like, story is a powerful, powerful tool. And like any other tool, the better you get at using it, the more you can effectively create change around you.
So if people want to hear your story, how do they get a hold of you?
If they want to hear my story, they can go to BrittanyHodak.com. Something that we didn't talk about is what I like to call the Superfan wave, which is if you
Is it like the Disneyland way?
yeah, it's
Do we have to get up?
This is my beauty queen wave. No, or it could be like a wave, like at the sports.
That's
You know,
what I
like
was
we're all
thinking,
gonna like do the wave. No, WAVE is an acronym, and it stands for welcomed, appreciated, validated, and engaged. And that's sort of like, you guys remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs from like psychology class, where it's like you've got to fulfill the base needs before you can work up to like love and esteem and
Right,
self-actualization. You've got to worry about like safety needs, physiological needs. So anyway, you guys are
Way
like
too
blank stare. I'm
way
like
too
clearly
complicated for
Gino
me. I
did
just
not
do-
take
I
this.
just am who I
Like-
am, like Popeye.
Okay, so for those of you who know Maslow, the Superfan wave is like my version of Maslow's hierarchy of how you create fans. So how you take a customer from I don't even know who you are to I am super engaged and you are my person. It's that 4-step process: welcomed, appreciated, validated, engaged. So if
it.
people want to hear more, they can go to my website, which is BrittanyHodak.com. If you go to BrittanyHodak.com/wave, you can download an ebook totally for free that talks about how to do a good job of that. And because, as I've said, I'm a nerd, there are a lot of really cool facts and stats and quotes in there too.
Wow.
Well,
Look at
before
you.
we let you go,
Very
tell us a
dynamic.
space joke.
Tell us a space joke? Okay. Can I tell the same one I told on stage
Sure.
earlier? Because
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
my favorite when we're talking about. Why don't people like to eat at the restaurant on the moon?
I would not know.
There's no atmosphere there.
Oh.
All right. So thank you for being part of our
Thank you
show.
for
No,
letting me
no,
tell my
you
jokes.
get a
Super
high
awesome.
five.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
high
like
five.
it. Yes, 5 people, you guys. 1 for each finger.
All right,
High five.
what a great time with you as always. Brittany Hodak, again, BrittanyHodak.com. Thank you for being part of the National Real Estate Cafe. You can always find out more at
DonandGino.com.